In the old days, on our backpack show, I would get to watch all these various different guests as we logged in. And this time I just happened to watch me eating like a chocolate covered fruit or something. So I just watch me now, I guess. Hello to my mom and my dad, and hello to my wonderful co host, Carrie O'Shea Gorgon. We're going to talk a little bit about networking and some stuff like that. And the reason we're going to talk about networking is because we were discussing that there's a premise where when you are just kind of doing your day job, you kind of forget to network and connect with all these people. And then sometimes a circumstance happens where suddenly you need to network, but lots of times there might be a chance to network just because it's probably a good thing to do. I'm just curious, how do you feel about the term networking and how do you feel about your ability to conduct it?
The term networking is kind of gross. Like it implies that there's a transactional aspect to it. And for some people there is. I'm terrible at that part of it. So I don't think, oh, I've got to go meet that person because they published 9 best-selling books or whatever. I either like them or I don't. I'm interested or I'm not. And the conversations go where they go. So over the course of many years that I've been, working, I have a pretty deep and wide network of people that are interesting and accomplished and in different areas. So it's not luck exactly, but it's also not strategy. If that makes sense. But I wouldn't consider it networking. So I'm thinking more like your professional network, because the word network actually doesn't seem as gross to me, is a is something that requires attention, as do all relationships. So friendships, romantic relationships into marriages, your relationship with your children, they all require work. And I think when we get really involved in any project or undertaking, including a full-time job, we have a tendency to kind of let relationships in general lapse. And that includes your professional network, and you can suffer for that if you find yourself suddenly coming up for air after your contract ends, or your project, or you're let go, or something like that. All of a sudden, you're like, "Hey, where is everybody?" And to them, you've dropped off the face for like however many years you just did the thing.
So many things are in that feedback that you just gave. And well, first, you know what we should do? Hello, Chloe Forbes Kinlan, who just had a birthday yesterday and who is absolutely a wonderful and delightful person. And so if you're on the YouTube version of the show today, go and make sure you wish Chloe a very happy birthday. Hi, Chloe. Um, when it comes to networking, I think uh, I think the whole concept of keeping one's network alive, I think we do a couple things interesting. I think one is that we only try to stick with our vertical, which is weird because if and when there's some other scenario where we want to connect and be, with other people, talk with other people, understand what's going on in the world, we only have this one thin, narrow view of things. Two, I think it goes back to your assertion that we tend to do this kind of in a very quid pro quo styling kind of way. Like, I will network with you because I think there's some value to networking. Today, just today, I went down to see this guy who is interesting, fascinating, co-founder of a very world famous company, and we just went down to have coffee. Neither of us needed anything from the other of us. There's no reason for us to network. We did it because we like each other, and we did it because we're both writers, and we did it because I'm sure he's thinking someday I'm going to write a book. Brogan's written some books. Let's talk about that. I think some of the connections that you and I have made, like through the backpack show and stuff, I think so many of those are like fun because of what they were, and it gave us such a broad swath of people to talk with. So isn't that kind of fun? And I guess related to that, isn't it important that we try to come into these without ever particularly needing or wanting anything specific to connect with people?
This is as simple as thinking back to the time somebody was like, "Hey, man, what are you up to? Haven't talked in a while. Let's catch up." And it turns out they want something. And it feels awful because you're like, we all want to be liked for ourselves alone. It's a human thing. So it feels dirty and gross when somebody's just trying to use you for something, even if it's a like a relatively small ask. So sometimes I'll be like, okay, it happens. It happens all the time that people like forget to keep up their network. I won't fault someone for that once. But if the only time I hear from them is when they want something, I'm going to drop them because that has happened more than once. I had somebody once texting me on Easter morning when my kids were still little, wanting me to do some dumb video thing for them. And I was like, no, I would just ignore it. And they went on all day and I continued to ignore it. So, I mean, that's like the most extreme version of this, but it feels bad being used. None of us likes that. On the other hand, contrast that feeling with the feeling you get when somebody you like, admire, and have kept in touch with and feel friendly with asks you for a small favor. You're like, of course, absolutely yes. So we want to create the feelings in others that that we desire in ourselves. So that's a big part of keeping your network warm, not just so you can like ask them for stuff, but so that you generally have built up some goodwill, so that if either of you need something, you're both happy to get that request and don't feel used.
In the book Trust Agents, Julian Smith and I wrote about being at the elbow of every deal. And one of the things that one should intend to do is be the person who connected another person, wherein which you didn't need something along the way. Like the person who is doing the connecting is not benefiting from this on either side. But what we said was if you do that enough times, you just become known as that person who, and that way it kind of works. So I just made an experience of that yesterday where I have a friend who I think is so smart, and he was like, he had this idea, and he was pitching me, and he was sort of like, "Tell me a little bit about what you think when you think this." And I said, "Well, I'm not smart in depth enough to give you the information. Like I could tell you sort of my surface opinion, but boy, do I know the guy." So I connected him with someone who they were definitely going to like each other no matter what. I just knew their energy was going to be good, and I thought that the way I positioned it to the other person was you have this accrued sense of knowledge and wisdom that you've built over the last 4 or 5 years that could really help this other guy fine tune some things. And there's no harm. Like he'll just be sort of sitting at your feet learning. Like there's no competitive side to this. And so as such, these two will get along wonderfully. I keep drawing a V because of the elbow of every deal. These people will get along wonderfully. And I think that they'll both come away going, "Oh, that was nice that Brogan, connected us up. That was useful." I think there's some benefit to storing up good karma points, and I have benefited from that. Question to you: how do you think? I mean, I'm one person doing it my one way. Do you think that this is something that more people could, should, or would want to do, or is this just a case of one?
So I've done something similar. I think when I first came around to the idea of building a professional network, kind of, again, I was really bad at it. And approach it the way you're supposed to. But I remember being basically just building connections naturally, organically in the marketing space. I was teaching marketing at the time, and just going basically having conversations. Remember when we used to do that on social networks and the conversations were not horrible and toxic. So I started to get to know people kind of that way. And then I think in the end, what happened was that I got to know CC Chapman, who we both know, in a different way. I'd gone to the same college as him, and he and my husband are very close. I had not really paid, frankly, like that much attention to his professional endeavors. But what I noticed was he seemed to know everybody and like who was good for which things. And because social media, the way it used to be, you could kind of see these conversations happening. And I was like, dang, how do you know everyone? And then I realized you just have to go and meet people. So I started freelancing so that I could go to industry conferences. I'd get a pass, like a press pass, as a freelance journalist or something covering the event. I would pay my own way for travel using the funds I made from freelancing. So I just kind of self funded, um, getting myself into the room with people who I'd known through around on having conversations on social media. So I think that was a pretty critical thing because I realized after a while that there was no special magic, that CC was not like some brilliant mega mind networking or something. You just have to go get to know people. And then it happens naturally that you make the connections others can't because you've met person A and person B, and you've got enough curiosity to have had conversations with them about what they do, what they like, what they want, what their crazy ideas are, and then you're the kind of one of the only people who can connect them. If all you do is go to events and talk about yourself nonstop, you will never be able to do that. And there's plenty of people who do exactly that. And maybe you do even helpfully connect them with others sometimes, but they're never going to be the person that everyone goes, wow, they're so helpful. I'm always glad to see that person. They always have some good suggestions for me. So that's a long way of saying you've got to put yourself out there and just get to know people, like get into the mix.
I'm div- I'm divulging one of my Chris Brogan patented secrets right now. One of my secrets is that a lot of people come away from spending time with me in social events like that, saying, "Wow, that guy! Wow!" And I didn't say anything pertinent or meaningful. I did all I did was talk to them about them in a way that let them praise themselves. And they walk away going, "That guy's great," and it's hilarious because I've done it so many times now. And I find that first off, I'm pretty shy. So the minute someone starts saying I'm pretty cool, I get nervous anyway. So I try to deflect that onto other people. Number two, I find that I know what I know, and I don't want to go out and talk about the things I know. I want to hear something that somebody else is doing. I talked to this guy. It's over here somewhere. Probably break something doing this. Just a camera. I talked to this guy. He's doing this study of Harvard and MIT unicorns, saying that there's all these multi-billion-dollar valuation companies that all came out of Harvard and MIT, and that if you looked at that as kind of a gross domestic product, like countries, it's those two colleges and what they've spawned as far as companies through startups is something like the seventh most wealthy nation in the world or something like that. This is a young guy. His report is his networking tool. I came away so smitten by like what he thought of it, what he came up with, and all that. There's nothing he needed to hear about me that was going to be, related to that. It's better for me to sort of bring his story somewhere than it is for me to share mine. And yet, I'm sure he'll come away thinking that guy seemed cool, and or whatever he thought, weird and cool. And I think that meaning, I don't think we have to be amazing. I think a lot of people worry that they have to be amazing. When you started going to these kinds of things, you're a fairly confident person, but when you started going to those things, were you worried that you had to be somehow worthy?
Nope. I was interviewing people for a podcast, so I didn't have to be anything. I didn't have to be well versed in the topic, although, I usually was. I didn't have to be the star of the show because that's not the point of being a host of a podcast. I just had to showcase smart and interesting people doing things we could learn from and try to distill what they were talking about down into something useful for the people listening so they could go do it too. And that I'm very good at. So that was easy. And so I got to know everybody and I had a very easy way to do it. And yeah, it wasn't hard for me, I don't think, because I didn't have an axe to grind beyond something that would be beneficial for them as well. I have a question for you in return, though. So you know the importance of keeping your network warm. You have written about it, you have talked and spoken on stage about it, and yet you yourself have occasionally gotten so absorbed in what you're doing that you let the ball drop. So, first of all, how does that happen? And second of all, how do you get yourself out of that?
Bless me, Father, for I've sinned. It has been 9 years since my last confession. It's been like 39 years since my last confession. Um, Okay. Yes. Very recently, I did that. I let the whole network fall all over the ground because I was inundated with good and interesting and exciting work. 12 to 16-hour days every day. It's not like, I never went out and frolicked and had some fun and entertainment, but my gosh, I was grinding. And and then that abruptly stopped end of April because, we transitioned out of the company. I came out, my boss came out, and he went off to do some stuff, and I was just by myself like a kid sitting in a park. I realized, oh no, I've let everything fall apart. And here's that. There you go. I've confessed. Here's what I learned along the way, and I think this might be the helpful part. I learned that I was not current with a lot of people. I did not know what they'd been up to. I did not know where they were. One, that I could help them, and two, if there was some way that I could participate in what they were doing, I had to start over from, hey, remember when I used to talk to you? The other thing I realized was that I miss that element. Like I miss, I'm a fairly introverted person, but I miss at least touching base, at least getting some pulse of what people are doing, and so having to get back into that was important. I also realized that even though I continuously put out content, I had not really been putting out great quality, meaningful content. Uh, Birthday girl Chloe Forbes Kinlan just recently released this incredible series on Notion on YouTube. And I think that that whole series out there floating will get her a lot more inbound attention. And I was thinking, crap, I need to get better at some inbound attention. That's one reason why we keep the show alive, is because if nothing else, people might come by and just catch the show a little bit and go, oh, yeah, those guys. So I learned, one, that I had been super lax and I needed to get back to it. Two, I learned where I didn't know where anybody was. Three, I learned I need to get back and put my work out there, because I think the worst way to network is walk in and just have one to ones over and over again. I think maybe the best way is to have something interesting that we can talk about, that thing like it's the campfire we gather around, where in which everyone can feel participatory. I think that's the ultimate way to do it. To that end, I know that, well, I don't know if you're talking about this yet, but if one were to go to something like a conference, don't you think it's a lot easier to have conversations when people understand a bit more kind of where you stand in the realm of a conference? Meaning, like what reasons you'd be there, or what things you represent, or whatever. Don't you think it's when when you come with a discussion set up, ready to go, is doesn't that make it easier?
Absolutely. So it wasn't until trying to think. It wasn't like that long, but I mean, it wasn't right away that I started speaking at events. It was once people figured out that I was a lawyer with expertise in the area of intellectual property law and marketing law, that they started to invite me to speak, as well as like I was covering the thing, but they're like, can you maybe do a panel, or can you maybe put together a talk? And then when I was working at Marketing Profs with Ann Handley, they would typically carve out a slot. So in addition to the other things like working on the show, the event, they would have me present usually, and it sometimes would be podcasting because that's an area obviously I know a lot about. It just depended. But so it gives you sort of a ready-made conversation starter, because you're going to be able to talk to everybody after you've spoken. But then also throughout the event, they'll be like, oh, I saw your talk, really interesting, la la. Or they'll be like, I missed your talk. Can you give me the highlights? Like that happens too. Um, I'm actually going to speak at Marketing Profs B2B Forum again this year. I'm excited about it. I'm not like website official yet. I'm waiting for them to make the update, but I've done the agreement and I've done the presentation. I've done the whole thing. And I'm excited about that. And it's already something I've been having conversations about online. Not that I'm going to be speaking about it, but like the topic itself is something I talk about all the time. It's like how to do AI the right way, kind of, and not get into serious trouble. So I think if it's something that you're passionate about, you're going to naturally enjoy talking about it. If it's something valuable enough that the organizers have put you on stage to talk about it with people who've paid to be there, then that's a pretty good indicator that the audience itself is going to be interested in the topic. So yeah, it definitely makes it a little bit easier. I don't know if it's yeah, I don't know. It's depending on the event you go to, it can be tempting to just talk to your buddies who are also speakers, and that's fun for sure and super important for your own sort of intellectual interest and development. But it is important as well to talk to the people who have gone there as an attendee, so you can get a fresh perspective and get questions that your speaker friends will not have. Because you kind of want to get down in the trenches and help people with the problems they have currently, and you're not going to know what those problems are if you don't go outside your circle, I guess. It was a very long way around of saying, yes, speaking at events is important and valuable and gives you a topic, but also go talk to some other people.
And if you're not a speaker, you can come there with something to talk about anyway. There's no reason. I haven't spoken at events in a while now, I can tell you that there's no reason not to wander into an event with a topic to talk to people about, and even want a question to bounce off a bunch of people. Especially everything is AI, AI, AI. You might walk around and say, "What percentage of your day are you using it?" Or there's any kind of a topic you could ask. The topic that we set this particular event for. Hi, Jackie. The topic we set for this event, this talk today with you and me, was the networking mistake most people make while working and how to fix it. The mistake is if you don't keep communicating with people in between and doing your stuff. How to fix it is have something interesting to talk about, have something interesting to share, bring enough food for the rest of the class, kind of a thing. It's interesting how when we go to places like I like how you said it about, if you're a speaker and you just go there to give your speech, that's one thing. But if you go there and you learn about what other people are dealing with, that's the real punk rock. I think there's such an opportunity to do that, even not from a stage. I just did it in a coffee shop this morning, uh, an hour from home. But I did it because I learned from a co-founder of a wildly successful company what he thinks is interesting, what he thinks is scary, what he thinks are some of the interesting turns in the road. Um, I didn't need to have a speech to do that. So you just have to, it's like my little drummer boy thing. You have something to bring to every conversation, so bring it. That's the concept there.
You could also make content. Events are great places for making content. I mean, don't be obnoxious about it and work with the organizers if you're hoping to talk to the speakers or something, but anybody can do it. One thing I wanted to mention too, and this is the way it can look if you are very absorbed in your current project or your job and you drop your network or you drop your relationships and neglect them. It can look like you got too big for your britches and you don't need anybody anymore and you're not keeping up. That's kind of the story people tell themselves. Even though the truth is you're just slammed. If you don't carve out time for those relationships, there is like a negative perception that comes with that. So if you can, even though you're really, really busy, keep your eyes open and try to connect people with opportunities. I've done this at every job. If something opened up where we are, obviously, and I could help the person, somebody that I know would be a great fit, get in there. I've done that several times if I'm able. If you're not able, you can still be a reference for people if they're looking for work. A lot of people are looking for work right now, that's for sure. And even if you try and it doesn't work out, people will remember that you tried. So if you're in a position to help people generally through whether it's through reference, referral, or helping them get into your company or some other company, like definitely do that. Make those connections for them. And that way, it'll feel transactional if that's all you do, but it won't feel transactional if you've been keeping up all along. So every once in a while, you're going to have somebody that wants you to try and get them into your company and they're not a good fit and you have to say no and that sucks. But that's just life because you're putting yourself on the line for the people that you're referring. But if you can refer them in good conscience, they would be culturally and skill-wise a fit, definitely do it, make the effort. It's hard because people that will tell you their skills and tell you that they are looking for their next thing or looking for freelance work or whatever, their stuff, they kind of disappear into these little like it's like a honeycomb. It's like their posts are going all over the networks. The algorithm shows you some and sometimes not others. And your interest in the networks themselves can like ebb and flow based on how busy you are. So I do make an effort if somebody tells me directly that they're looking and what they're looking for, I will make an effort to keep my eyes open for them. Or if I see them post and I know this person's like a quality person, I'll reshare their post that they're looking just in the hope that somebody in my network will see it. And then for other people, I'll go like the next mile and upload their resume myself to our system. If I feel really sure that they're the right person for something, I will do my best. So that's just something I wanted to mention. In addition to the times that you're just catching up to catch up, sometimes if you're in a position to do something for someone else, I mean, definitely do it. Don't miss the chance because you can't get that kind of opportunity when you wish you could. Like you have to kind of be paying attention when the stars align, if that makes sense.
It really does. And it's funny, something you said there really sparked how like LinkedIn, more than LinkedIn would like to show you what your connections have posted, it really wants to show you what some third level connection has posted that some friend hit a like button on or something like that. I 90% of the things that scroll through my feed on LinkedIn are other people's very far away from me, thanks. However, I also have been paying a lot of attention to hiring and recruiting and HR talent because in my own searches, I've been like, wow, this didn't work half the way I thought it did. I should really pay more attention. And so I was looking, saw this post. This person said, she's a recruiter. Um, she quoted someone else's post where they were basically whinging. They were like, the recruiter sucks. I can't get anything done. Why can't they hire me? Why is this such a big blah? Like just vomit onto LinkedIn. And the recruiter said, while these are very valid points and opinions and feedback and whatever, no one who's looking to hire is like, oh, now that's a valid post. That's interesting. I should really think about this person for this role that I have. And I really got that feeling of like 2 a.m. at a bar when some real sloppy drunk person's like, we should go home. Like, that's not your best look. And desperation is never a good look, and neither is complaining. And I think it's really hard. It gets really frustrating. I sent several hundred job applications when I realized I was not going to have a role for a while. I sent several hundred because I hadn't applied for a job in 20-ish years. And now there's like all this tech that just says push a button. And what I found afterwards was, oh, those just basically go into the dumpster. Like you might as well not even push that button. So I wasted months of time thinking I was doing something useful, and there's no system or detail or anything that tells you you don't. Meaning, I vividly get the frustration one could have. I also say that's not what we write about. In those moments, we still say nice things. We still say the things we think are interesting. There's a place for that kind of feelings and those negative stuff. It's called your diary and it's called your therapist. But what it isn't is a job platform called LinkedIn.
Take your troubles to God, call your mother, call your best friend, do whatever you have to do to get it out of your system. I agree. You don't want to come across as whiny in public. But that's not the same as expressing vulnerability. I think expressing vulnerability is powerful. So if you're like, oh, listen, I've got all these skills, it's been rough. I'm still looking. I've gotten a certification in this while I was waiting. I'm keeping myself up to date. I'm super excited about an X project I'm working on, like that kind of stuff. That's not whining, that's updating. And there's a difference. So, yeah. And how I engage with those posts about about what people are up to now and how they're kind of filling the time. It's very different. I wouldn't want to be seen publicly commenting on like a whinging thing because then it's like by association, I'm also a whiner and nobody likes that. So I agree. You do have to maintain your personal brand to an extent. My personal brand is like it's just me with less swearing, basically. So it's pretty much the same. I don't know if that's true for everybody, but it's true for me. So what about for your personal brand? How does that align with your network? Like the way that you engage with people, I have to think because it's you is also very much like, yep, this is me, warts and all.
Oh, if there's somebody out there who, shows off their blatant, messy booger picking nudity, you know what I mean? It's me. Like if there's the worst possible way to, represent oneself, I'm that guy. I am just a walking shamble. But I think that it's again, if you do something with repetition, then it starts to look like a brand, and people are like, "That Brogan man, he's like a nutty professor." Um, yes, I am, but I wish. I mean, I wish I were sleek and polished. I think I don't know, but it's just I live in my head too much to care about some of the other things, and I think it repeatedly shows. Now, what I have come to understand that other people perceive their use of me is they're like, wow, that guy is like a boiling, steaming pit of weird stuff. And if we can find a couple of plugs and connectors to get some of that boiling weirdness out into a proper line somewhere, then we can get something. So that's another part of my networking is all I need to do is say something smart enough that someone goes, oh, well, that's noteworthy. Then I can start to figure out a way to be useful. So I don't know. That's my thought on it. Any last words before I push the button and make us all leave for summer vacation?
Last words. I will just say that being rumpled and weird makes you relatable and huggable.
Huggable, if you don't mind taking some dander away with you. My DNA is available for free everywhere. All right, listen, I love everybody. Happy birthday to Chloe Forbes Kinlan. I'm going to see what this